It's time to take your seat in the front row with Mike Vaccaro. Here's your host, Mike Vaccaro.
Hey, thank you, Chuck Denson, and welcome everybody. Mike Vaccaro here once again in the front row. As always, JR Quitman behind the scenes, our creator, producer, and director. This is a CLNS Media Network podcast. Well, it is basketball our focus in episode number 55 here today, and we go to our roots. We are based in Wilmington, North Carolina, and it's a native of Wilmington, Kenny Gattison, who joins us here today to share his journey growing up in Wilmington, playing against Michael Jordan is that guy that he played against on the streets and also in the gymnasium on the high school level as well. Talks about his relationship with Michael Jordan, how that relationship helped get him to Old Dominion, where he was the Sun Belt Player of the Year, eventually went to the NBA, a 9-year career there, including many years spent with the Charlotte Hornets, early days of the Hornets as an expansion franchise in the NBA. From their coaching career and now working back with the NBA as well. A great story, great journey from Kenny Gattison. Great stories here. Now, we do apologize for some glitching from the video portion of this. So if you do mind that, you can go to the description below and see the link for the audio-only version. Again, great stories talking about Michael Jordan, the Hornets, also John Calipari in the mix as well. You don't want to miss this episode, a really good one. Episode number 55 with Kenny Gattison. First of all, we certainly appreciate you taking some time to join us here today, to share your story with us here today, and so many great things about your life that we're going to get into. And we want to start where it began for you in Wilmington, North Carolina, where we're based out of. You grew up in Wilmington, a much different time than it is nowadays here. What was life like for you growing up in Wilmington at that time?
Well, I mean, it was a different era, as you say. I remember as a little kid, walking around the downtown area of the cobblestone streets, and I ain't no spring chicken, so I do remember the colored signs and the colored entrances and, the colored water fountains and places you couldn't go. And so it's been a absolute joy for me to see the changes, not only in Wilmington, but in this country. It's been I have 3 sons now, and we spend most of our conversations, most of our time talking about what my life was like and the things of, these last 70, 75 years in this country have been truly remarkable on every level you can imagine. Technology, human rights, equality, it's not perfect, but it's better than it was. So, I enjoy my time when I'm down in Wilmington, and, it's my hometown. I love Wilmington dearly. And, some people, when they get out of a small town, they never want to set foot back in it. I love coming to Wilmington because it's my history, it's my past, and so many wonderful things happened for you there.
Yeah, you're born in 1964, so through the late 60s, early 70s, did you see in your childhood a lot of changes? As you mentioned, separation at the time, but did you see barriers broken as you were growing up?
Not necessarily when laws were put in place. This thing is not it didn't get broken overnight, so it didn't fixed overnight. You can integrate schools in 69 or whatever you want to. You still were expected to sit in the back of the class and the white kids sit in the front. And you get on a city bus, you're expected to go to the back. So I would say the transformation was slow and steady to get us to where we are today. Yeah, it's just a kind of surreal to remember events in history and why things happen, and and I mean, we're right here in the midst of Black History Month. There's been so much Black history, and growing up and in real time with the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King as a little kid, watching my older relatives just revere this man, and you're sitting around as a little boy, and you're like, okay, what's going on? Because all you know is this little town Wilmington, but the movement was turning into a tsunami right about 67, 68, 69.
With that as your backdrop, playing sports, what was sports like for you during that time and developing into the player that you became?
Sports was the great equalizer. Sports, I can't stress to parents the value that competing on a sports team and playing with teammates, white, Black, Asian, Latino, Indian, we were all on the same team. And you had that person's back no matter what. And the social conditioning, the teamwork conditioning was just important as the physical conditioning, because for the white kids that never got a chance to grow up around Black people and see Black people, they quickly learn to realize that when I break my nose in football practice, I bleed red blood. So do the Black kids. They bleed red blood too. We're all the same. We're just different colors. And just meshing our society through sports was so valuable and so important. I grew up on, the north side of Wilmington. There were no white people around there. It was, it's like I almost gut laugh now when I'm in Wilmington and I see white people walking up and down just jolly and happy on Castle Street and on Red Cross Street. I'm like, shut the front door. What in the world is, so it's so amazing. It's so beautiful, and you like I said, our country isn't perfect, but it has gotten better. So I don't plan on leaving no time soon.
Yeah, as you said, sports a great equalizer and brings everybody together. Let's talk about your high school career here and bringing people together, because you were an outstanding athlete at New Hanover High School here in town, and not just basketball, which you went pro in, but football as well. You're a pretty good football player and played the high school football for the Wildcats as well.
Well, all of my friends that I grew up with, and back in that day, the guys you started first and second grade, when you ended up graduating with them, you just stayed, you weren't moving around. I moved around quite a bit, but all of my friends that knew me growing up, my dream was to be the tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. And, I was that guy when it came to basketball, and everybody had picked 9 players and they look at me and I was the 10th one. They're like, oh my God, not him. And I'm like, y'all just let's get on to football season. So I was the one that, everybody was so shocked and surprised to have a professional career in basketball, because I was such a standout football defensive end and tight end in high school that it was almost preconceived I was going to be a football player. And gosh, over the span of 2 years, I must have grew about 4 inches. And I actually was a late bloomer in basketball because I never played. I never seriously played basketball. And I started to grow tall. And, you know, it's one of those things where you have to look in the mirror and have an honest talk with yourself. And I was like in the 10th grade and playing junior varsity basketball. And I looked in the mirror. I'm like, dude, you really suck. You are just bottom of the boot, awful. And I started going in the gym at lunchtime during football season. At lunchtime, I scheduled a coach for my class after lunch. And I'm like, okay, I got to put in the work to see how good I can be at basketball. And I became a very, very good basketball player, to say the least. And it was something that was very slow, very methodical, because I really, in the 10th grade, I really had to start with just the basic fundamentals of basketball, from the dribbling drills, right hand, left hand, layups, the Mikan drill, all these things that the kids that love basketball were doing when they were 7 years old. I was sleeping with a football, you know. Now, granted, if I'd have chose to pursue a football career, I probably would have been a Pro Bowl tight end in the NFL. I was high school at 6'7", about 230, 235, running a 4.5 40. So so there's a reason why I had scholarships to every ACC and SEC and Big Ten school in football. But something clicked, and I put so much work into football, and I was one of those guys that the coaches used to watch that old 8mm film, grainy, looked like a old TCM Western or something like that. And I just sit in the back of the classroom at the field house with them, and I'd watch the film, and football became so boring to me. I'm like, you know, I'm going to really start practicing basketball. And then the one thing that made the difference in basketball, in football, I had to rely on 10 other people on either side of the ball to do their job as good as I was doing mine. In basketball, I only had to rely on 4. So somewhere in the 11th, in between the 11th and the 12th grade, I started to say, you know, I think I prefer to play, even though I love football, I'm starting to like basketball really a lot. And I'll tell you an interesting tidbit that most people don't know. When Mike went to 5-star camp up in Pittsburgh, and that was in between, he was a year older, so that was in between his junior and senior year, in between my sophomore and junior year. So when he comes back from 5-star, it's, you know, we always had standing pickup games during the summertime.
And the Mike you're talking about is Michael Jordan, for those who don't know, also a Wilmington native.
Oh, hey. I call him Mike.
Exactly. I love it.
If I was to call him Michael Jordan, he would give me a side eye, like, okay, what in the hell are you up to? You know, I've never called him Michael. That's the guy on the posters. You know, right. Mike is the guy that we were playing at Empty Park. That's the guy I grew up with, you know. But anyway, when he came back from 5-star basketball camp, and we had our standing pickup game, and he was like, "Look, guys," and that was, talking to me and Rondro Boney and Ronald Jones, who were two exceptional athletes that played with me at New Hanover and growing up. He's like, "Look, man, you guys have to go to 5-star." He went up there and won every award there was. And he was like, "We don't know how good we are. We sit around here and beat each other's brains out. And then I go to 5-star and I win every trophy there." So Mike really was the one that spearheaded the Kenny Gattison basketball movement. And the next summer, Coach Emerson we drove from Wilmington up to Pittsburgh 5-star camp, and me, Rondro Boney, Ronald Jones, Andre Boynton, and we stopped by Chapel Hill and picked up Ranzino Smith. And so you're talking about 6 big dudes crammed into a 4-door Buick Century going around the mountainsides in Pennsylvania. I'm like, Lord, if you get me out of here, I promise you I'll never come back. So 5-star went well. And now I turn into a highly recruited basketball player. And that's when things started to click for me, saying, first my goal was to get out of Wilmington, North Carolina. Either Jacksonville in the Marines or Fort Bragg in the Air Force. Never was it a thought of being a professional athlete. Just didn't think that way. Growing up, I was probably one of the smallest of my relatives, cousins, and everybody. I was the runt, and then I grew, and so by the time I got to my senior year in high school, I had my pick of scholarships to most major conferences in the country, in football and basketball. So it was a achievement to know that I could go to college and get a education other than, my parents couldn't afford to send me to college. Like I said, the most successful people that I knew growing up, they either worked out at General Electric or they were in the military. So I'm like, well, I'm getting out of Wilmington, so I guess I'll go in the military. So, but it worked out, and it's been just an amazing ride, because it was nothing I never dreamt of. It's, and I'm assuming Mike, being the basketball guy that he was growing up, he always dreamed of playing at Carolina. He always dreamed of playing in the NBA. I dreamed of going and play football at Clemson, and I had a poster of Roger Staubach on my wall, not Julius Erving. So I was wired kind of differently.
Well, let's go back to those pickup games at Empty Park. Who was winning those games? I'm sure. And don't tell me you and Michael Jordan were on the same team together, because that would have been low up there at the time.
Oh, absolutely not. Mike and I, the only time Mike and I ever, and this is honest God's truth, the only time that Mike and I ever teamed up on any team whatsoever, it was when we used to go out to UNCW when Danny Davis and Mel Gibson and those guys, we might have been 9th or 10th graders. We would go out to UNC Wilmington and play UNC Wilmington's team, and we beat them. And Coach Gibson was like, you know what? You guys get out of my freaking gym and come over here and beat my guys, but I can't get none of you to come to school here. We're like, Coach, we just want to get out of here. What are you talking about? We don't take it personal. We better than your guys, but we're not staying here. And So we go to Empty Park and we play our pickup games, and it was always my guys against his guys. And probably 2 through 5, we had the better players. And, you know, we go out, we play on the asphalt. And, you know, back in those days, we played 11, you had to win by 2. And we could be up 9-6 or comfortable lead. And all of a sudden, Mike would score and nobody could stop him. He'd get every rebound and nobody could stop him. And, you know, he'd carry his whole team and they would beat us. And I would say we probably split 50-50, probably about like we did in high school, I would imagine, because, you know, he was an absolutely phenomenal basketball player. Like I said, we were better athletes 2 through 5. You know, he just was far superior. You know, it's like we didn't know what to call it. We didn't know what it was, but it was always something different about Mike athletically, mindset. You know, we'd all jump in the air for the ball. Everybody be down and he'd still be up there. And they're like, okay, what this dude got wings on his shirt or something? And just his knack for making plays and making shots in close games. We saw that at an early age. And of course we didn't know what to call it. And we're like, you know what? That boy's good. We don't know why, but, you know, he was just different. And as we got older, we realized God made Mike, and then he broke the mold. Because, you know, during that time, and it's so funny, you know, we go sitting here reminiscing. If you weren't going to play at Carolina, whether it was on the varsity team or the JV team, Coach Smith wouldn't allow you to come on campus and play. It was only for Carolina players. So we would all go to Bobby Crimmins' camp at Appalachian State. And when I tell you, you know, we were 9th and 10th graders. Back in those days, you couldn't commit, you know, but me, Mike, James Worthy, Sleepy Floyd, Brad Daugherty, Nate McMillan, Cecil Exum, Dominic Wilkins, Gerald Wilkins. We had no clue of what was in that gym. We were just young black athletes playing basketball, trying to beat the tar out of each other. But you talking about, you know, and as we go on and we always have a conversation in the pros, oh, whose guys were better? And I'm like, I don't care what you say. In the state of North Carolina, graduating classes from 1979 to 1982 will beat any other state in the country. And these guys from Chicago and New York and all that. And then you start rattling down names: Nick McMillan, Michael Jordan, James Worthy, Dominic Wilkins, Gerald Wilkins, Brad Daugherty, Kenny Gattison, and a host of other, Danny Manning. And well, Danny Manning might have graduated about 83 or 84, something like that. But you're still talking about 12 guys that played in the NBA, 4 of them in the Hall of Fame, 7, 8 of them became all-stars. And here we are running around in Bobby Crimmins' basketball camp at Appalachian State with them Daisy Duke shorts on so tight you count the change in your pockets. I believe a couple guys was playing in cut-off jeans. So, that was us back in the day.
Yeah, what you had in that gym was a hell of a lot of talent right there. As you said, Hall of Famers, a lot of NBA guys. And for you, again, using that experience playing against those guys that got you to Old Dominion, and you had an outstanding career there. You were the Sun Belt Player of the Year during your career as well. What do you remember most about your time in Norfolk playing for the Monarchs?
Coach Paul Webb. I growing up in North Carolina, I never heard of Old Dominion in my life. I went to 5-star camp the summer of 1981. And Mark West had on an ODU basketball T-shirt. And I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, man, what's this ODU basketball, biting off UNC colors?" He's like, "Oh, it's Old Dominion University, where I go to school, Norfolk, Virginia." I'm like, "Okay, I never heard of Old Dominion or never heard of Norfolk. I'll see you around." And what impressed me about Mark, all the campers were the camp counselors, college players from all around the country and da-da-da-da-da. Most of them, they come to, of course, Pittsburgh. It was a good old beer drinking steel mill town. So I'm assuming when those college guys got done with, because the drinking age was 18 back there, when they got through spending 5 hours, 6 hours teaching the high school kids drills and skills and things, at night they went out and had a few sarsaparillas. So they come back in the morning barely on time, smelling like a brewery. But Mark West walked around with a backpack, and whenever there was lunch or a break, I always noticed he had his head down in a book. So I migrated towards him, and I'm like, "Okay, big fella, what you doing?" He's like, "I'm studying." I said, "In the summertime?" He said, "Yeah, I got summer school class I'm taking. I'm majoring in finance. So, I'm up here for a week or so, but I go back, I got to take exams, so I got to study." He's the only one I saw studying. And then from that moment, I'm like, "You know what? I like you." And as my recruiting, once I got back from 5-star, I made or whatever it was, the 5-star all-star team, the best 10 guys in the camp, best 10 or 12, and nobody ever heard of me. They had no reason to hear me. I was an all-state football player, hell-bent on playing football. But after that, after I got back from 5-star, every basketball coach in America was trying to get on the phone with me or come to Wilmington and visit. And it was really tough because I was being recruited very heavily in both sports. And some guys relish the attention. Some guys love the attention. I didn't necessarily love it because I didn't want to be on the phone listening to coaches give their pitch. I had things to do. I had practice. I had homework to do. I wasn't about to sit and listen to a bunch of snake oil salesmen gas my head up and telling me how great I could be when, I knew I was going to play college football at that time. So it just was a quick pivot, and I finally got to know the coaches. I wasn't concerned about getting to know the coaches from Old Dominion as much as I was getting to know Mark West. And most of my recruiting calls, I told the coaches from Old Dominion, Oliver Purnell and Coach Webb and Eddie Webb. I'm like, whenever y'all call me, make sure Mark West is close by because I want to talk to him. I like that dude. And so we formed a close relationship. Me and Mark, the coaches, and I started taking my visits, and by this time I'm about visited out because I had football visits and then the basketball visits, and I promised Mark West I used my last visit to come visit him at Old Dominion. I'm like, ain't no way in hell I'm going to school there, but I'll come visit you. And got to meet Dell Curry at 5-star camp, and we became really good friends in high school. And I told him I'd come visit Virginia Tech because Dell might have been in high school when we met. We were 17, 11th graders going into our senior years. He might have been the best shooter I ever seen in my. No, not might have been. He was the best shooter I ever seen in my life. And I had enough sense to. I'm like, okay, he had already committed to Virginia Tech, and I'm like, well, sure it would be nice to play with a guard that can make shots all night. And so I visited Virginia Tech because of Dell. And once I got off the plane and I saw Blacksburg, Virginia, I'm like, oh, no, to the hell, to the no. like, there's no way I'm coming to school up in these hills. And lo and behold, I used my last visit to go visit Old Dominion. I get there, I think I got there at night, so I really didn't see it. And, wake up the next morning, open up the hotel blinds, and all I see is this water. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in a bigger Wilmington. And I'm like, okay, how far is this? I'm like, it's only 5 hours up, 5.5 hours. Up 17. So it passed the eyeball test. And one of the things that I was always very, very conscious of and aware of when I went on visits, I wanted to watch the team practice. And if a coach used profanity towards his players, or if he degraded them, or just anything negative, I crossed that school off my list. Because the coaches that I grew up with, Coach Emerson, Coach Miller, they were hard coaches, they were firm, they were fair, but they treated us like young adults. They did not MF us. They never degraded us. And they run your butt into the ground. You wasn't getting it was no shortcut, but you were treated with respect and the way you should treat. That's why I just despise coaches that yell and cuss and rant. And, because the way how I grew up, you call me something other than Kenny or Gattison, I'm going to punch you in the mouth. So that just sealed it for me. All these coaches, and they yelling and screaming in players' faces, and I'm like, you know what? I would knock that dude out so fast. Coach Webb recruited me in 1981. I committed to Old Dominion in the late fall of 1981. It's 2023. What is that? 42 years?
Yeah.
In the 42 years I've known Coach Webb, I've never heard him use profanity.
Wow.
That's why I went to Old Dominion. That's why I still love that man like a dad today. He's 92 now. We talk every week or every 2 weeks, and we're really close. And his his family became my family, his grandkids. I know them. I know all of them. We're not just friends, we're family. So in a nutshell, Old Dominion was perfect for Kenny Gattison, and Kenny Gattison was perfect for Old Dominion. You know, I could have went to all of these ACC schools, and maybe because of the pressure to win, not have a chance to develop slowly and, you know, but trust me, if I could play in the NBA, I could damn sure play any other ACC school. So that was never the issue of, oh, I got to go to I'm going to UNC because Mike's going there. You know, Dean Smith, you know, probably one of the only times he left Chapel Hill was to come down and recruit Mike. And just so happened, it was Mike's senior year, and we playing at their place, and we beat them. And Dean Smith and his little nasally tone voice, Gattison, you're going to be a fine player, son, but I'd love for you to come to Chapel Hill, but we have this worthy kid, son, and you're just not going to play. I say, Coach, I appreciate it, but I don't plan on going to Chapel Hill. I'm pretty much a football guy. So that was my conversation about Chapel Hill with Dean Smith. And, you know, God bless him. He was a wonderful coach to a lot of players over there.
Well, again, it obviously worked out for you, 82-86 at Old Dominion. You led them to their first ever NCAA tournament win against West Virginia during that time. And you eventually parlayed that into your NBA career, 9-year career for you after getting drafted by the Phoenix Suns. What stands out to you, your career? Because it seems like your best years back in your home state of North Carolina, playing for the Charlotte Hornets, the early days of the Hornets. Do you remember those times fondly?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, how many kids get to play professional sports 3 hours from where they were born and raised? Now, that's a blessing and a curse. I had a whole lot of cousins all of a sudden and wanted tickets to games and stuff. So it was, you know, but it was the most wonderful time, the most wonderful experience, because I was born and raised right here, 3 hours from Charlotte. And to be here playing in my home state, to be out there at the Hive with 23,476 screaming fans sold out for 10 straight years. A kid couldn't ask for anything better. It just, there's no way I could have put together this basketball journey. It's just, you know, throughout all of the injuries and everything, and, you know, there's this big debate going on in football about concussions and all this stuff, and it's a very serious thing. You find me, the NFL or the NBA player that played 10 plus years, and say if you had the chance to do it over again, would you do it? 8 out of 10 gonna say, yes, I would. And the 2 that say, no, I would not, if you hooked them up to a lie detector, you see they lying. So you get a chance to play professional sports. It's amazing. It's like living in a reality. What is this thing they call the virtual metaverse now?
Sure, yes.
That was what I was living from 89 to 96 when I was going to that Charlotte Coliseum 2-3 nights a week to play in front of my home state fans. It was You know, all I can say is I'm thankful and I'm blessed for my journey. It wasn't always easy. You know, my childhood was rough. Down in Wilmington, it was rough. Life was not easy. But, you know, all I'll tell you, and that's what I tell my kids today, you know, I was blessed to have a long career in the NBA as a player and a coach, and been blessed that my children never know what hard times look or sound like, you know. But this is what I'll tell you, and this is one of the things that I believe with all my heart. Only in the hottest fire is the hardest steel forged. So what I had to go through prepared me for what was to come ahead. You know, I get drafted in '86 with the Suns, training camp of '87. I completely shred my left knee. Doctors basically said, you got to go ahead and retire. You're done. I'm like, no, I'm not. You got to fix it, don't you? You got to repair it. And I got to have surgery. Then I'm going to try to play. And then I go on and play 9 years more and multitudes. And I got 6, 7 screws and 2, 3 rods and steel plates in my body now. Would I do it again? You damn Skippy. Every last day of it. So, you know, it's an honor and a blessing that I cherish. And, you know, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for the journey. I'm grateful for everything.
And again, it was the early days of the Hornets that you were on those teams, and you were on teams that their first playoff appearance or second playoff appearance in franchise history. And you played with some of the greats. You eventually got a chance to play with Dell Curry. You played with, you know, guys like Alonzo Mourning, Larry Johnson, Kendall Gill, Muggsy Bogues, Johnny Newman, some of the greats in franchise history. As you look back at that time, do you remember more the time with the players, or do you remember the accomplishments that you had as a member of that Hornets team?
All of it. Because you don't have one without the other. Whether it was in season, off season, we always were together. Me and Muggs and Dell, we lived in Charlotte. Hershey Hawkins, you know, he had school-age kids, so he lived year-round in Charlotte. And we always did everything together. Unlike these sports teams of today, we cared about each other. We genuinely liked each other. We would go to each other's house and barbecue and sit around, and our kids would get in the pool and play. And we all wanted to go out for, you know, take our wives out on a night of a town. We get a couple of our babysitters and say, okay, y'all got all the kids for tonight. And we'd go out and we'd have some of the best New Year's Eve parties and celebrations. And we all go to practice the next day and puke in a trash can. But we had a ball. We were friends. And to this day, me and Muggs and Dell, we don't live far from each other. We see each other all the time. I just saw Muggsy 3 days ago. And that's what made it so special. You know, you can win and hate the guy you playing with. You know, it's like all of this negative stuff that's coming out for the Last Dance or whatever that bull thing was. Last Dance, that was a Donna Summer song, I think. Anyway, all them guys need to shut the hell up, because without Mike, not one of them won a championship on their own. So the guys that I played with, we were so close and cared about each other. And still to this day, me, Zoe, LJ, David Wingate, Mike Jaminski, all of us, because we genuinely liked each other. We loved each other. And we never have lost sight of the importance of those friendships. We knew the friendship was going to last way longer than the playing careers. So it was special to take those first Hornets teams and be a part of it. I mean, you're an expansion team. A roster was like a revolving door. You would play 6 months with a guy and he'd be gone, or 2 or 3 of them were gone. And then we got to the point where we got some talent and we were good.
Yeah. And
we could, get to the playoffs and then win the first playoff series. And then we become a playoff team. And, it just, winning breeds monsters also. It's a whole lot of things you ain't been in a locker room. You don't know the locker room. But winning breeds monsters. And you don't get to be the top of your profession without somewhat of an ego. So it's hard to get everybody to check their egos at the door. But that's the one thing with those Hornets teams. Everybody checked the ego at the door, because I was like the bouncer for the locker room. You weren't coming in my locker room with an ego. It was no, anything got missed, I got it settled. And that was my role on those teams. You keep it about the team. I had more team meetings than any coach had, just to clear the air and make sure we all on the same page. And it just, I never won a championship or come close to an NBA championship. That same old number 23 was a nemesis in my life. But you get caught in a time where the NBA was really floundering. Mm-hmm. I remember when I got drafted in 1986, there were only about 4 or 5 teams making money. Check this out. This is going to blow a lot of people away. When I came into the NBA in 1986, the salary cap for the whole team was $12.6 million.
Jeez. Now
the 7th or 8th man probably making $17 million. The stars make $50 million. So wish I'd have been born in 94 instead of 64. I've been making them up $25 million these days. You get paid $1 million a point, basically. That's a pay scale, $1.5 million a point these days.
Pro athletes in the 90s, the 80s, obviously the 70s, not making or didn't make what those guys these days are. So you've got to, you have your playing career for you, again, 9 years, but then you've got to think afterwards, what's afterwards? And for you, it became assistant coach. You were a coaching career that lasted 13 years as well. One stop at Old Dominion, other stops in the NBA. Did you kind of find, what was it, an easy transition for you going from being a player to being a coach? What was that transition like?
Well, the transition started at Old Dominion because it was important to me to go to college and get my degree. That was very important to me. I didn't skip classes. I didn't walk around, I'm the star athlete, I don't have to do no work. They're going to just give me passing grades. No, that's not how it went with me. It was very important for me to get my degree at Old Dominion before, guys started leaving college after 2 or 3 years, probably in about 83, 84, something like that. And of course, after my junior year, I was ranked pretty high in the small forwards in the country, and some talk about if he left school early, he'd be a first rounder. I'm like, I'm not leaving nowhere. I got a driver's license and a meal card. Are you crazy? I'm staying right at Old Dominion. So it was never a thought. And, throughout my NBA playing career, I always treated people with respect. I always treated my coaches, it's one of those things. You go up and you always hear Big Mama say, talk to people like you want to be talked to. Treat people how you want to be treated. And, I adhered to those things. And, you get some athletes that's having success, whether it's college or on a pro level, they turn into the biggest prima donnas. They had the ego so big they couldn't get it in the damn door. But I always was conscious of treating everybody the right way and being a guy that, people couldn't say anything bad about. So that's how I went about my playing career. So naturally, when I'm done playing, my first stop was in the front office with the Charlotte Hornets, and they were in disarray. They just traded. They let Alonzo sign with Miami. As soon as I get in the front office, they're talking about trading Larry Johnson. I'm like, you know what? Y'all are getting ready to make a big mess. Let me go find something else to do. And at the same time, John Calipari is calling me 2-3 times a day, trying to get me to come up to New Jersey and be on his staff. And that's where I pivoted and went to New Jersey and coached with Cal for 3 years. And that was my coaching career, and moved all over the country chasing that head coaching job. But that, I wanted it to be in college, not in the NBA. I wanted to be a college head coach.
The connection with Calipari, does it go back to Joe Miller, your football coach at New Hanover High School? Those two are cousins, I believe, right?
Yes, it does. I probably met Cal when I was 16 years old, 15, 16 years old, because his brother would bring Cal, and Sean and Archie were just little boys. They would come down to Wilmington and spend a couple of weeks with Coach Miller, hanging out at the beach. And of course, naturally, they all come over to football practice. And I got to know Cal, and Cal wanted me to be on his staff because he knew I was a loyal guy that would be trustworthy. And we went back so far. It was Coach Miller that called me and was like, look, Cal wants you to be on your staff. So I'm calling you, and I'm going to be the first to tell you he wants you on his staff. I'm like, all right, coach. And then that couple conversations with Cal, and there I was.
Was Cal on those UNCW teams that you were beating when you and your high school friends?
No,
he spent a couple years at UNCW, right?
Yeah. That was Cal wasn't the best of basketball players. They probably wouldn't have let him on the court, even with the UNC guys out there. He might have been running around, but I think I was somewhere in between, because we really didn't go over there and play but a few times before Coach Gibson told us, don't bring y'all butts back over here beating my guys. So it was really a funny thing. The high school kids go over there and beat the college kids, and they laugh and joke about coming to play at UNC Wilmington. All us to a man, you crazy. We getting the hell out of here.
Yeah, putting those guys down certainly has some good results there. So again, a 13-year career as a coach, and then another transition period for you. You now still work for the NBA, the vice president of the National Basketball Retired Players Association. Tell us more about that group and your role with that. It was a group that a lot of former players started. Dave Bing, Dave DeBuscher, Oscar Robertson helped form that as well. What's your role with that group?
Well, those guys were the founders of the Retired Players Association, and back in '91, somewhere around there, I was on the executive committee with the Players Association, and, working with the union, negotiating the collective bargaining agreements. And those guys came to us and said they wanted to start a Retired Players Association, and we were like, "Oh, wow, that's a great idea. How can we help you?" And so we let them have 5 minutes of FaceTime in locker rooms during training camp, just to give guys literature on the Retired Players Association and what it was about. And now it's morphed into we have close to 1,400 members now, and consists of ABA players, NBA players, WNBA players, and the Harlem Globetrotters now. So it's really grown in the last, I've been on board for 6 years, and we've probably almost tripled our membership numbers. And we really put an emphasis on helping guys with that transition from playing to a normal work life, to a normal life without basketball. And that transition is very hard for these young men and young women, because you're a star from the time you 15 years old, high school, college, NBA, and you have all these friends and everybody wants to hang around you, and can I do anything for you? Well, the day that jersey comes off your back, unless you're one of the elite players, you call up these so-called friends you got, and you're looking for a job, or you're looking for this, that, or the other, you don't get any callbacks. And that's a very empty mental space to be in, because all your life you've been told, "Oh man, you the greatest, you the greatest." And now all of a sudden, nobody calls you back. Your name's not in lights in the arena anymore. So you sit around and you're in a unfamiliar place. You don't have a schedule anymore. Their practice don't start at 11. The bus doesn't leave for the airport. There's no game. There's no travel. So now you're stuck in life. And most guys aren't prepared for that, because they don't start preparing for it early on. When I came into the NBA, because of the pay scale, I knew I was going to work when I got done. Just so happened, because I conducted myself as a professional on and off the court, I had numerous offers to coach or go in the front office. And that's why it's so important that you conduct yourself in a professional manner at all times, because most times the people you're working for are sitting in those NBA arenas. You just, as a young man, you're not thinking that far down the road, but I was, So we try to help with that transition. We have degree completion programs. We have professional services, resume writing. We have a broadcasting boot camp for people that want to venture into the broadcasting field. We have a partnership with the NBA coaches and mentorship program that we try to get people in that looking for careers in coaching. So it's a pretty neat job. It keeps me involved in basketball and some of the old timers, the greats, and some of the new guys. So, you know, I'm an NBA lifer. I've been one foot in and one hand involved with the NBA at one form or another since I was 22 years old. So, like I said, it's been a great journey, absolute great journey.
And an amazing journey when you look at it, you know, your accomplishments and some of your honors. You had your number 44 jersey retired at Old Dominion. You're in their Hall of Fame. 2013 inducted into the Greater Wilmington Sports Hall of Fame. We've been lucky enough to have a couple previous inductees join us: John Bunting, Trot Nixon, a couple of those guys. But to get recognized in your hometown, in a hometown that's littered with talent,
it's amazing, isn't it?
Talent. You know, what does it mean to you to be in the Greater Wilmington Sports Hall of Fame?
It's just an honor. You know, it's something that I was that guy. I never looked at a stat sheet after a game. All I looked at was a scoreboard. Did we win? That's all I was ever concerned about. And I had a singular focus of just being the best Kenny Gattison I could be. And when you do the best that you humanly possibly can, good things usually happen. I don't care what profession it is. When you do the best, when you don't take shortcuts, good things typically happen. And I was just so blessed to be in a bubble with just the tremendous coaches and teachers and disciplinarians, and it created the blueprint for success. You know, it's just, I don't know how to say it without saying I'm so thankful for the coaches and the teachers and everybody that was a part of my upbringing. Because in that mixing bowl of life, I took everything that was good from everybody that I would run across and meet. And everything that was bad, I left it outside of my bowl. So to be honored in the Wilmington Sports Hall of Fame, to be honored and put into the Old Dominion Sports Hall of Fame, have my number 44 retired in the rafters at ODU, and now our Kenny Gattison court over there at New Hanover High School. And I was just over New Hanover last week speaking to the boys and girls teams. And I'm standing on the Kenny Gattison court logo. And I told them, I said, this logo's on this court. 50% is because I was a terrific athlete and a winner. And I said the other 50% of it is I treated people good. I was respectful to my teachers, my principals, my coaches, you know, because for these things to come in place and you receive all these accolades and honors, there's a body of people that have to agree to put you in this place. It's not one person making these decisions. And like I told those kids over there, if I was a jerk and a butthole while I was at New Hanover High School and a jerk and a butthole when I was playing with the Charlotte Hornets and come home to Wilmington and talking down to people and everything, my name would not be on this court. 50% of it is I was a great athlete and I was a winner. And the other 50% is I treated people the right way. And that's why it's the things that I've instilled in my children and I can take them to Wilmington and say, you see, you see my jersey here, you see all this, you see this. It's because I did things the right way. So you just follow my guidance and follow my lead in life, and you're gonna be just fine. So it's all of the. And I started this thing off talking about the amazing experience in real life, real time experience that you gain being a part of a team, and it just gives you amazing communication skills, amazing decision making and critical thinking. It gives you all of these, what they call soft skills. They talk about now. Hell, it's common sense skills. Treat people good. If you see a book, pick it up and read it. I mean, life is real simple. And that's one thing I've mastered in my life, keeping things real simple. And life is beautiful. It's the people that you allow in your life that screw it up. So you better learn how to use a filter and a sifter, because everybody can't go where you want to go. So it's my formula that it's worked for me. I pass it down to my children, and they're going to pass it down to their children. And then I got my first grandson 5 months ago, and it's like, let me sit in my rocking chair and smoke my cigar and enjoy what I've done. So that's kind of where I am now. I'm just a happy former professional, washed up, broke down athlete. I'm just grateful and blessed for the journey. And, you know, it's just one of those things where if you treat people good, good things will happen to you. You know, it's life. It's going to be some ups and downs, some peaks and valleys. I had some major injuries in my career. Totally retired. You think I let that stop me? Hell, tell me what I can't do. Now you're really going to see something. So, you know, and at this point of my life now, I'm where I've taken off my armor. I don't have to fight wars anymore. I don't have to fight battles anymore. You know, my life is like a smooth lake, and so at peace, so comfortable. And, you know, I'm 3 hours away from my sisters and my family in Wilmington. It just, you know, I'm right back in North Carolina, which I always knew I'd come back to. So if this was a movie script, it couldn't have been written. It couldn't have been written any better.
Yeah, for a guy who thought he was going to be the tight end for the Cowboys, to have the court that you played basketball on named after you and all these accolades, I could tell life certainly has treated you well as you're approaching, 60 years in a couple of years here. Life is good to you, and it's great to see. Kenny, can't thank you enough for spending some time with us, sharing such incredible stories about your journey and the journey that continues and your involvement now. And the messages that you're sharing are certainly are very good for today's youth and those kids that were listening to you at New Hanover a couple of weeks ago.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, and look forward to chatting with you guys again in the future.
Hey, great stuff there. Episode number 55, Kenny Gattison joining us and sharing his journey with us. We thank you for watching or listening today. And as always, remind you to subscribe to our podcast, as we'll have more great guests coming your way soon from all walks of life. Again, more basketball, football, baseball, others to come as well. Thanks for joining us here today. We'll see you next time for another edition of In the Front Row with Mike Vaccaro. Have a great day, everybody.